Black Waitress stood up to the rude customer, not knowing he was the cold millionaire testing her. Rain pelted the windows of Rainy Day Diner, turning Seattle into a blur of gray. Tuesday afternoon meant half-empty booths and the constant hiss of the ancient coffee machine. Tasha balanced 3 mugs in one hand, order pad in the other, when she heard it, that sharp, entitled snap of fingers cutting through the clatter of dishes. Have you ever stood up to someone when every instinct told you to keep quiet? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. In the exact moment he snapped his fingers at her like she was nothing, Tasha made a decision that would either cost her job or change her life. And neither option scared her as much as staying silent one more day. Rain pelted the windows of Rainy Day Diner, turning Seattle into a blur of gray. Tuesday afternoon meant half-empty booths and the constant hiss of the ancient coffee machine. Tasha balanced 3 mugs in one hand, order pad in the other, when she heard it, that sharp, entitled snap of fingers cutting through the clatter of dishes. You call this service? The man's voice carried across the diner. Every head turned. Tasha froze. The customer in the corner booth wore a charcoal suit worth more than her monthly rent. His face held the cold confidence of someone used to being obeyed without question. Something inside her, beaten down by double shifts, late rent notices, and years of swallowing her pride, finally broke. She placed the coffee mugs on the nearest table, straightened her shoulders, and walked directly to his booth. The other waitresses watched wide-eyed, already mentally posting her job opening. Respect works both ways, sir. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. The diner went silent. Even the cook peeked through the service window. The man's expression shifted from irritation to something she couldn't read. His eyes, sharp, assessing, traveled from her face to her name tag and back. I've been waiting 20 minutes, he said, voice lowered but still hard. We're short-staffed today. I'm covering 3 sections alone. Tasha met his gaze without flinching. Snapping your fingers at me won't make your coffee arrive any faster. Her manager appeared beside her, face pale. Is there a problem here? The man in the suit leaned back, one eyebrow raised, waiting to see what she'd do next. Testing her. No problem, Tasha said, not breaking eye contact with the customer. I'll have his order right out. As she turned away, chin high despite her trembling hands, she felt his eyes still on her. Not angry as she expected, but calculating, curious. The man hadn't moved, hadn't spoken again, and somehow that silence felt more dangerous than any outburst could have been. What Tasha didn't know then. This wasn't just another entitled customer. This was Cole Harrington, the man who secretly owned not just the diner, but half the block. A man who had come to test his employees and found something he hadn't expected. The next morning, she found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Have you ever stood up to someone when every instinct told you to keep quiet? What pushed you to that breaking point? Tell me in the comments if you've ever had to choose between your dignity and your paycheck. Because for Tasha, that simple act of courage was about to turn her world upside down. The mysterious envelope slipped under her apartment door contained no return address, just a business card, an address in the wealthiest part of Seattle, and a handwritten note. Your honesty impressed me. Let's discuss your future. Tasha turned the heavy cardstock over in her hands. Embossed black letters read Cole Harrington, CEO, with an address in downtown Seattle. A quick internet search nearly made her drop her phone. Cole Harrington, 34 years old, self-made shipping magnate, estimated worth $2.8 billion. And apparently, the man she'd stood up to yesterday over coffee service. This has to be a joke, she muttered to her empty apartment. But the card felt real between her fingers. Expensive, substantial. She should throw it away. Any meeting with a man like that spelled trouble. Yet the note mentioned her honesty, not her attitude. Not her appearance. Her honesty. That night at the diner, her manager pulled her aside. Corporate visited today. They're giving everyone raises. His confused expression said he couldn't make sense of the sudden generosity. And they specifically mentioned you for promotion. By morning, curiosity won. Dressed in her only decent outfit, black pants, and a blue blouse she'd bought for interviews. Tasha found herself standing before a glass skyscraper that pierced the Seattle skyline like an exclamation point. The security guard checked her ID, made a call, then directed her to a private elevator that opened with a key card. "Top floor," he said, handing her the card. "Mr. Harrington is expecting you." The elevator rose silently, floor numbers blinking upward until they stopped at 50. When the doors opened, Tasha stepped into another world. His penthouse office occupied the entire top floor, glass walls offering a panoramic view of Seattle that made the city look like it belonged to him. Perhaps it did. A woman with a sleek bob and sharper suit approached. "Ms. Davis? I'm Andrea, Mr. Harrington's executive assistant. He'll see you now." Cole Harrington stood by the windows, Seattle spread beneath him. He turned as she entered, and Tasha realized something she'd missed at the diner. He was younger than she'd thought, barely into his 30s, with features that belonged on magazine covers rather than in boardrooms. "Ms. Davis." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Thank you for coming." Tasha remained standing. "Why am I here, Mr. Harrington?" A smile touched his lips, brief, almost reluctant. "Direct. Good. I own Rainy Day Diner, along with several other businesses in Seattle. I visit them periodically to assess the staff." "You mean you pretend to be a jerk to see who stands up to you?" Her eyes narrowed. "I create pressure to see who maintains their integrity." He moved to his desk. "You'd be surprised how many people abandon their principles when faced with authority." "You thought I was just another entitled customer," he continued, leaning against his desk. "I want to know why you risked your job to stand up to me." The question hung between them, direct and unavoidable. "Because my dignity isn't negotiable," Tasha said. "Not for minimum wage, not for any amount." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe respect. "That's exactly why I want to hire you as my personal assistant." When he named a salary that could change her life, simply to work as his personal assistant, Tasha felt something sink in her stomach. No one offered that kind of money without expecting something in return. The question was, what did Cole Harrington really want from her? Would you meet with someone who had tested you without your knowledge? Or would you tear up the invitation? Drop your reaction below. The contract sat between them like a loaded gun. 5 times her current salary, a luxury apartment, and only one rule that made her blood run cold. You will have no personal life outside of this job. Is this a joke? Tasha asked, rereading the clause. No personal life? What exactly does that mean? Cole leaned forward in his chair. It means you're on call 24/7. It means my business becomes your priority. No distractions. That's not legal. You can't control what I do off the clock. I'm not controlling it. I'm buying it. His voice remained calm, matter of fact. You'll have the other executive suite in my building. Car service, health insurance that would cover anything, even pre-existing conditions. The last part hit its mark. Her grandmother's medication costs had been crushing her for years. Why me? You have Harvard graduates lining up for jobs like this. Harvard graduates tell me what they think I want to hear. You told me the truth, even when it could cost you everything. He pushed the contract closer. I need someone who values honesty over self-preservation. Tasha scanned the document again. The money was life-changing. She could pay off her student loans in months instead of decades. Get her grandmother the specialist she needed. Finally breathe without the constant pressure of choosing which bill to pay this month. But the price was her freedom. Let me be clear, she said, meeting his gaze. This no personal life clause, does it include expectations beyond professional duties? His expression hardened. I don't mix business with pleasure, Ms. Davis. Ever. Your virtue is safe for me. The dismissive tone stung more than it should have. What happened to your last assistant? She asked. She couldn't separate her personal problems from her professional obligations. And the one before that, he leaked confidential information to a competitor. Tasha sat back. So you have trust issues. I have standards. Cole stood, walking to the window. My company handles billions in international shipping. One leak, one mistake, one divided loyalty could cost hundreds of jobs. His fountain pen gleamed under the office lights as he slid it toward her, the metal catching fire like a warning sign she chose to ignore. 1 year, he said. Give me 1 year of your complete focus. After that, you'll have references that will open any door in this city. Tasha thought about her apartment with its leaking ceiling, the collection notices, her grandmother's medicine ration to make it last longer. Then she thought about what it would mean to belong to someone else's schedule, someone else's demands, someone else's world. 3 conditions, she said, surprising herself with her boldness. First, my grandmother's medical care is included in my benefits package. Second, I get 1 Sunday a month completely off-grid. Third, I'm not wearing heels every day. Cole's mouth twitched. Your grandmother's care, yes. 1 Sunday a month, acceptable as long as you carry an emergency phone. The heels are non-negotiable for client meetings, optional otherwise. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? Tasha looked at his hand, then back at the contract. Everything in her life had led to this moment. Every extra shift, every bill she couldn't pay, every dream deferred. As she signed her name, Tasha couldn't shake the feeling she'd just made a deal with a devil in designer clothing. A devil whose eyes lingered on her lips when he thought she wasn't looking. What price would you put on your freedom? How much would someone have to pay you to put your personal life on hold? Share your thoughts below. On her first day as Cole Harrington's assistant, Tasha realized 3 things. His empire was larger than she'd imagined. His enemies were everywhere, and the way he looked at her wasn't purely professional. Not that she'd admit it to herself yet. The luxury apartment he'd provided took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that didn't come from secondhand stores, a kitchen with appliances that all worked at the same time. She ran her fingers over the marble countertop, half expecting to wake up. Her closet had been filled with clothes in her size. Not just suits and dresses for work, but everything: jeans, sweaters, even sleepwear. A note on the dresser read, Andrea handled the selections based on your measurements. Return anything you don't want. The invasion of privacy should have angered her. Instead, she felt a disturbing mixture of gratitude and unease. Ready for day 1? Cole's voice came through the new phone on her nightstand, an internal building line she hadn't noticed. How did you? The security system alerted me when you arrived. Car will be waiting in 20 minutes. Harrington Shipping occupied 10 floors of downtown Seattle's most prestigious building. As the private elevator carried them upward, Cole stood closer than necessary, the scent of his cologne making it hard to focus on the tablet he handed her. Your schedule, my schedule, security protocols, he explained, reaching across her to swipe the screen. His arm brushed hers, the contact brief but electric. You'll need to memorize the emergency procedures by tomorrow. The elevator doors opened to reveal a stunning reception area where a dozen people waited, eyes tracking Cole's every move. Executive team meeting in 5, said Andrea, appearing at Cole's side. She gave Tasha a cool once-over. I've prepared the briefing materials. Tasha will handle it from here, Cole replied. Tasha, this is the team. The introductions blurred together, VPs, directors, chief officers, all with perfect smiles that didn't reach their eyes. One man, introduced as Chief Financial Officer James Werner, held her hand a beat too long. Interesting choice for an assistant, he said, glancing at Cole. Rather, unconventional background. The comment hung in the air like a bad smell. Unconventional perspectives find unconventional solutions, Cole replied smoothly. That's how we stay ahead. As they walked to the conference room, Cole adjusted Tasha's collar, his fingers brushing her neck. Werner will test you, he murmured. He believes the position should have gone to his niece. The boardroom buzzed with pre-meeting chatter that died when they entered. Tasha felt the weight of evaluation in every glance. Throughout the meeting, she took careful notes, absorbing the rhythm of corporate politics. Who interrupted whom? Who deferred to whom? Who looked to Cole before speaking? She noticed how Werner challenged Cole's Asian expansion plan, how the others watched the exchange like spectators at a tennis match. The Korean contract is too risky, Werner insisted. We should focus on established markets. The risk is calculated, Cole countered. Tasha, the projection file. Without hesitation, she pulled up the document on the room's display. Cole nodded his approval, a small gesture that shouldn't have made her chest warm with pride. After the meeting, Cole guided her to his office, hand at the small of her back. The touch was light but proprietary, sending a confusing signal to both her and anyone watching. "You did well," he said once the door closed. "First impression matters." "They think I'm sleeping with you," she said bluntly. His expression didn't change. "They think what I allow them to think." Before she could respond, his computer chimed. Cole's face hardened as he read the message on his screen. "What is it?" she asked. He turned the monitor so she could see the email. No sender name, just a subject line. "We know your weakness now." Attached was a photo of Tasha entering the building that morning. She realized this job wasn't just about filing papers and answering phones. She had become a pawn in a game she didn't understand. Have you ever stepped into a world where you felt completely out of place? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. Cole Harrington had built his empire on ice and steel, but as Tasha watched him silently stare at his brother's framed photo each morning, she began to wonder if his coldness wasn't cruelty at all, but armor protecting a wound that never healed. "Who keeps sending these?" Tasha asked, placing another unmarked envelope on Cole's desk. "Third one this week." Cole barely glanced at it. "Corporate rivals. Ignore them." But the threats were escalating. First a photo of her, then surveillance shots of Cole's penthouse, now details about his private meetings. Someone was watching them closely. 2 weeks in her new position, Tasha had established a rhythm. Mornings organizing Cole's schedule, afternoons in meetings or handling correspondence, evenings often stretching in at night as international calls came in from Asia and Europe. She learned his habits: black coffee before 10 a.m., green tea after, the way he loosened his tie exactly 1 inch during difficult phone calls, how he always paused at his office doorway each morning to touch the frame briefly, like a ritual or superstition. And she noticed the photograph, silver-framed, partially hidden behind his computer monitor. 2 young men, arms around each other's shoulders, laughing. Cole, maybe 10 years younger, and someone who shared his features but not his guarded expression. Tonight, they worked late. Takeout containers pushed aside as they prepared for tomorrow's board meeting. Rain lashed against the windows, the office dark except for desk lamps creating pools of light. "Your brother?" Tasha finally asked, nodding toward the photo when Cole looked up. His expression shuddered. "Yes. Does he work with you?" "He's dead." Cole's voice was flat. "Galaxidon. 8 years ago. I am sorry." She hesitated, then added, "You were close?" Cole stood abruptly, walking to the windows. "We're not discussing my family, Tasha," but something in his posture, shoulders tight, hands clasped behind his back, told her more than his words. This wasn't just grief. It was guilt. Lightning illuminated his office as thunder rolled across Seattle, briefly revealing his expression as he watched the storm, a moment of raw longing so intense she had to look away. "It's late," he said, not turning from the window. "You should go home. We haven't finished the presentation. I'll handle it." Tasha gathered her things slowly, watching his reflection in the dark glass. For a man who commanded an empire, he suddenly looked very alone. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. "Come to the office," Cole said without greeting. "There's been a breach." She found him reviewing security footage, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, hair mussed from running his hands through it repeatedly. "Someone accessed our servers," he explained, eyes not leaving the screen. "Asian contract details, personnel files." "My file?" she asked quietly. He finally looked at her. "Yes, along with mine and the executive teams." They worked through the night, Cole making calls to security teams while Tasha organized the breach details. As dawn approached, she found him asleep on his office couch, face finally relaxed in a way she never saw when he was awake. She should wake him. Instead, she found herself reaching for the throw blanket kept in his private bathroom, carefully draping it over him. His hand caught her wrist as she adjusted the blanket. Eyes still closed, grip gentle but firm. "Madeline," he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "It's Tasha," she said softly. His eyes opened, confusion clearing as he focused on her face. He released her wrist slowly, fingers trailing across her skin. "Sorry," he said, sitting up. "I was dreaming." "Who's Madeline?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Cole's face closed again, walls slamming back into place. "No one important." He stood, straightening his rumpled shirt. "The security team found something. We need to prepare for the board meeting." But Tasha had seen something in that unguarded moment. Not just the man behind the mask, but a glimpse of who had helped put the mask there in the first place. Well, have you discovered someone wasn't who you thought they were? The moment you saw beneath their mask? Tell me about it in the comments. They were supposed to be pretending, his hands on her waist, her laugh at his whispered comments. But somewhere between fake smiles and practice touches, Tasha's heartbeat became the most dangerous liar in the room. "Remember, these people aren't our friends," Cole murmured, guiding her through the hotel ballroom entrance. "Everyone here wants something from Harrington Shipping." The annual Maritime Commerce Gala transformed Seattle's Four Seasons into a playground for the wealthy. Women draped in jewels that could feed small countries. Men whose handshakes sealed billion-dollar deals. Tasha's dress, midnight blue, off-shoulder, had been waiting in her apartment with a note. "Wear this tonight. Important client attending." The fabric moved like water against her skin, making her feel both powerful and exposed. "James Werner at 2 o'clock, Cole whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "With the man in the gray suit, that's Victor Zhao, our main competitor for the Korean contract." "Why are they talking?" Tasha asked through a smile. "That's what we're here to find out." Cole's hand slid to the small of her back, fingers splaying possessively. "Werner's been pushing back on my expansion plans. I need to know if he's working both sides." As they moved through the crowd, Tasha noticed the pattern. How conversations paused when they approached, how women assessed her with cool eyes, how men's gazes lingered too long. They all wondered the same thing. Who was she to Cole Harrington? Mr. Harrington, a silver-haired man, approached with a younger woman on his arm. "Didn't expect to see you here. You usually avoid these functions." "Senator Phillips," Cole nodded. "I had good reason to attend this year. May I introduce Tasha Davis, my partner." "Partner, not assistant." The word hung between them as Cole's hand pressed more firmly against her back. The senator's smile tightened. "Partner? How progressive of you." "Ms. Davis helps me see opportunities others miss," Cole replied smoothly. "She's the reason we're expanding into new markets this quarter." The conversation drifted to politics and shipping regulations, but Tasha remained distracted by Cole's touch, by the warmth of his body beside hers, by the role she was suddenly playing. When the orchestra began, Cole guided her to the dance floor without asking. His hand claimed her waist, the other taking hers with confident familiarity. "Victor Zhao is watching us," he said, turning her smoothly. "The man tried to sabotage 3 of my contracts last year. Now he's talking to my CFO. So this," Tasha gestured subtly between them. "This is a show for him. For everyone." Cole pulled her closer as they moved between other couples. "There have been rumors about me for years. Cold, isolated, married to my company. They're looking for weaknesses, personal attachments they can exploit. And I'm supposed to be that weakness?" She couldn't keep the edge from her voice. His thumb traced slow circles on her bare shoulder as they swayed to the music, each touch sending electricity down her spine. "They're watching," he murmured, his breath warm against her neck. "Good," she heard herself reply, shocking them both. Something shifted in his eyes, calculation giving way to genuine heat. His hand at her waist tightened, drawing her against him until she felt the solid plane of his chest, the controlled strength in his frame. The music swelled around them, but all Tasha heard was the pounding of her own heart, the dangerous whisper of desire that had nothing to do with their performance and everything to do with the man himself. As the song ended, Cole reluctantly released her, his fingers trailing down her arm. "Werner's heading to the terrace," he said, voice rougher than before. "We should follow." The night air cooled her flushed skin as they stepped outside. Cole kept her close, his arm around her waist, as they pretended to admire the Seattle skyline while eavesdropping on Werner's conversation nearby. The board won't approve his Korean deal, Werner was saying to Zhao. Too much risk for minimal return. And if the deal falls through, Zhao asked, then perhaps your company would consider a partnership with more reasonable leadership. Cole's body tensed against hers. His fingers dug into her hip, the only sign of the anger he otherwise controlled perfectly. Back in his penthouse, the champagne made her bold. That wasn't all an act for you, was it? She challenged. Instead of answering, Cole stepped closer, his gaze dropping to her lips before he abruptly turned away. You should go to your room, Tasha, he said, voice rough, before we both regret crossing this line. Have you ever pretended to feel something only to realize you weren't pretending anymore? Share your experience with crossing emotional lines. The locked room on the west wing of his penthouse held the answer to Cole's coldness. And the moment Tasha's curiosity pushed her to peek inside would be the moment everything between them changed. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of tension thick enough to touch. Cole buried himself in work, making excuses to avoid being alone with her. Tasha tried to focus on the mounting evidence against Werner, but her thoughts kept drifting to the feel of Cole's hands on her waist, the heat in his eyes before he pulled away. I need the Morrison files, Cole said late Friday evening, not looking up from his computer. They're in my home office. Tasha nodded, glad for the excuse to escape the tension. I'll get them now. His private elevator opened directly into his penthouse, a privilege she'd only used for work purposes until now. The apartment sat silent and dark, floor-to-ceiling windows capturing Seattle's glittering nightscape. She found the files quickly, but as she turned to leave, a flash of lightning illuminated a hallway she'd never noticed before, a corridor extending from the main living area toward the west side of the building. At its end stood a door different from the others. Darker wood, closed. Tasha knew she should leave. Whatever lay beyond that door wasn't her business. But something about Cole's behavior, the name he'd murmured while half asleep, pulled her forward. The handle turned easily in her grasp. Unlocked after all, dust motes danced in the beam of light that spilled into the untouched bedroom, preserving a moment from 5 years ago. Perfume bottles on the vanity, a dress still draped across a chair, waiting for someone who would never return. A woman's room, untouched but not abandoned, maintained, remembered. On the bedside table sat a photograph in a silver frame. Tasha's breath caught as she picked it up. Cole, smiling openly in a way she'd never seen, his arm around a woman with deep brown skin and eyes that held the camera with confident challenge. A woman who, with her heart-shaped face and determined expression, looked startlingly like Tasha herself. Her name was Madeline. Tasha spun around. Cole stood in the doorway, face shadowed, voice flat. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I was getting the files and decided to invade my privacy. His tone wasn't angry, just tired, resigned. Who was she? Tasha asked, unable to stop herself. Cole stepped into the room, movements careful, as if entering sacred space. My fiancée. She died 5 years ago. I'm sorry, Tasha repeated, feeling the inadequacy of the words. She set the photograph down gently. What happened? For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he crossed to the window, keeping his back to her. Quel accident. At least, that's what I believed until 6 months later, when I discovered she'd been working with my competitors, feeding them information. The crash happened the same day I confronted her. His shoulders were rigid, hands clasped behind his back in that military posture she'd come to recognize as his defense against emotion. You think she? Tasha couldn't finish the question. I think she chose to drive off that cliff rather than face what she'd done. His voice dropped so low she barely heard him. Rather than face me. The room felt suddenly airless. Tasha took a step toward him, then stopped, uncertain. Why keep a room like this? Cole turned, his face half illuminated by the city lights beyond the window. To remind myself never to trust that completely again. The space between them seemed both vast and too small. She looks like you, he whispered, fingers tracing the photograph of his dead fiancée. dark skin and determined eyes, so similar to Tasha's own. "That's why you hired me, isn't it?" Tasha asked, heart sinking. His silence was answer enough. The truth settled cold and heavy in her stomach. She wasn't hired for her honesty or integrity. She was hired because she resembled a ghost. "That's why everyone at the office looks at me that way," she said, pieces clicking into place. "They think I'm her replacement. In every way." "I didn't realize the resemblance until after I'd decided to hire you," Cole said, but the explanation sounded hollow, even to him. "Your response in the diner was nothing like hers would have been." She was calculating. "You were genuine." Tasha moved toward the door. "I should go." Cole caught her arm as she passed, his grip gentle but urgent. "Tasha." The contact sparked between them. That same electricity from the gala night, intensified by the intimate darkness and the weight of revelation. "Let me go," she whispered, not pulling away. His eyes searched hers, the mask slipping to reveal raw need and confusion. For a heartbeat, she thought he might kiss her. His gaze dropped to her lips, his breath caught. But then he released her arm, stepping back. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "Didn't you?" Tasha asked quietly. "You hired me to be a ghost stand-in." She left him standing in the shrine to his past, wondering if there was room in Cole Harrington's life for anything but shadows. What would you do if you discovered someone's deepest pain? Would you keep your distance or try to heal them? Comment your thoughts below. When the board members demanded Cole fire her, citing inappropriate relationship rumors, Tasha realized the choice between her dignity and her growing feelings for him wasn't really a choice at all. She'd already decided where her loyalty lay. "This is a closed executive session, Ms. Davis," James Werner said, false politeness barely masking his triumph as Tasha entered the boardroom with Cole. "Personnel matters concerning your position." "Which is precisely why she's here," Cole replied, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Continue." Werner exchanged glances with the other board members before clearing his throat. "As I was saying, the board has concerns about Ms. Davis's continued employment. The nature of your relationship has become a subject of industry gossip." "My relationship with my assistant is professional," Cole stated flatly. "The gala suggested otherwise," said Eleanor Patel, one of the few women on the board. "Several clients commented on your closeness." "Perception matters in this industry," Werner added. A CEO with a personal assistant half his age, sharing his building, attending functions as his partner. It creates questions about judgment. Tasha sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, face composed despite the humiliation burning through her. This wasn't about propriety. This was about Werner making his move, using her as leverage. "If my personal staff decisions are now board matters," Cole said, voice dangerously quiet. "Perhaps we should discuss your niece's position in finance, James. The one with no qualifications, but a surprisingly generous salary." Werner's face flushed. "That's entirely different, is it?" Cole leaned forward. "Or is this about the Korean contract you've been sabotaging? The one you discussed with Victor Zhao at the gala?" A heavy silence fell over the room. "That's absurd," Werner sputtered. "I would never." "We have witnesses," Tasha cut in, opening the folder she'd brought, "and documented evidence of communication between you and Zhao shipping dating back 6 months. She slid copies of emails across the table. Messages Werner had thought were deleted, recovered by the security team after the breach. Rain lashed against the boardroom windows as 15 pairs of judgmental eyes assessed her worth, calculated her threat, and found her wanting, all while Cole's jaw tightened with each whispered comment. "This doesn't address the inappropriate nature of your relationship," Werner countered, desperate to regain control. Tasha stood. "Mr. Werner, let me clarify something. I was hired because of my integrity, not my appearance. I've maintained that integrity while you've been selling company secrets to competitors." She gathered her materials, then paused. "But if my presence is causing such concern, I'll make this easy. Accept my resignation, effective immediately." Cole's head snapped toward her, genuine surprise breaking through his control facade. "Tasha," he began. "It's fine," she said quietly. "Mr. Werner is right about one thing. Perception matters. I won't let my position become a liability to the company." She walked out with her head high, ignoring the murmurs that followed. The elevator doors had barely closed before Cole joined her, jabbing the button for his floor with more force than necessary. "What the hell was that?" he demanded as they rode in tense silence. "Giving you a clean exit," she replied. "Werner was going to use me against you either way. That wasn't your decision to make, wasn't it? You hired me for my judgment." The elevator stopped at his penthouse level. Cole blocked the doors from closing, his larger frame suddenly making the space feel confined, charged. "I won't let them force you out," Cole said, voice low and dangerous as they reached his penthouse. When she turned to face him, the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Why?" she whispered. His answer changed everything. "Because I need you, Tasha. Not because you remind me of her. Because you're nothing like her." The words hung between them, raw and honest in a way Cole Harrington rarely allowed himself to be. "You don't need me," Tasha said quietly. "You've built an empire without me. You'll be fine. That's where you're wrong." He stepped closer, the professional distance they'd maintained crumbling. "Before you, I was running a company. Since you, I've remembered why it matters." His phone rang, the boardroom calling back. Cole ignored it, his eyes not leaving her face. "I have to go back in there," he said. "But this conversation isn't over. Don't pack. Don't leave. Promise me." Something about his voice, the edge of vulnerability beneath the command, made her nod. "I promise." As the elevator doors closed between them, Tasha wondered if she'd just made another deal she might regret, or if this time, the terms might actually favor her heart. Have you ever been judged as not belonging somewhere? How did you handle it? Share your response in the comments. The security breach forced them to share the panic room for 6 long hours. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to run from the truth simmering between them since that first confrontation in the diner. The alarm blared through Cole's penthouse at 2:17 a.m., jolting Tasha awake in her apartment 1 floor below. Her secure phone rang immediately. "Get to the panic room," Cole ordered, voice tight. "Now, use the emergency stairs." She was moving before conscious thought, grabbing the go bag she'd been trained to keep ready. The service stairwell opened with her keycard, leading directly to Cole's floor where red emergency lights pulsed in rhythm with the alarm. Cole met her at his door, hair rumpled from sleep, wearing only sweatpants and a t-shirt, the most undressed she'd ever seen him. He took her arm, guiding her through the darkened apartment toward a bookcase that now stood open, revealing a steel door. "What's happening?" she asked as the door sealed behind them with a pneumatic hiss. "Security breach in the building," Cole replied, moving to a bank of monitors showing camera feeds. "Second one this week." The panic room was smaller than she'd expected, about the size of her old apartment's living room. One wall held security screens, another emergency supplies. A small bathroom stood off to one side. A single couch provided the only seating. "Someone cut power to the security floors," Cole explained, checking camera feeds. They were in the system less than 2 minutes before the backup generators kicked in. "Targeting what?" "Us." He pulled up footage showing 2 masked figures in the executive floor stairwell. They headed straight for my private elevator. On screen, the intruders discovered the elevator locked down, argued briefly, then disappeared back into the stairwell. "Police response time?" Tasha asked, professional mode engaging despite her racing heart. 8 minutes out. Cole checked another screen. Building security is sweeping floor by floor. As the adrenaline ebbed, Tasha became acutely aware of their situation. Locked together in close quarters, both in sleep clothes, the events of the board meeting still unresolved between them. "How long do we stay here?" "Until security confirms the building is clear." Cole finally looked at her directly. "Could be hours. Hours." Alone, with nowhere to retreat from the conversation they'd been avoiding. The panic room's soft blue emergency lights cast shadows across his features, stripping away the businessman and revealing just the man. Vulnerable, wanting, and watching her like she was both salvation and temptation. "About today," Cole began, leaning against the monitoring station. "What you did in the boardroom, I meant it," Tasha interrupted. I won't be used against you. That's not your decision. It's exactly my decision. She stepped closer, frustration overriding caution. You don't get to control everything, Cole. Not even with the salary you're paying me. His eyes darkened. This isn't about your salary. Then what is it about? Why fight so hard to keep me? Because, he stopped, jaw tight. Because I look like her? Tasha challenged. Because I'm some kind of replacement? Because you're nothing like her. The words exploded from him, breaking his careful control. Because you see me, not my money, not my power. You see me, and you're still here. The confession hung between them, raw and exposed. I wanted to hate you, she admitted, voice dropping. When I found out about Madeline, about why you hired me, I wanted to walk away. Why didn't you? Tasha met his gaze. Because I see how you look at me when you think I don't notice. Not like I'm her ghost. Like I'm something you're afraid to want. Cole pushed off from the console, closing the distance between them. His hand rose slowly to her face, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. I've wanted this since you stood up to me, he confessed, fingers finally brushing her cheek. Since you looked me in the eye and demanded respect. Then stop holding back, she challenged, pulling him closer by his shirt, surprising them both with her boldness. His control finally shattered. His mouth found hers with hunger that matched her own, backing her against the wall. One hand cradled her head while the other gripped her waist, drawing her against him until no space remained. Tasha's fingers tangled in his hair, holding him to her as years of denial and weeks of tension dissolved into heat and need. His lips traveled down her neck, drawing a soft gasp that seemed to further ignite him. We shouldn't, he murmured against her skin, even as his hand slipped beneath her sleep shirt, tracing paths of fire across her back. We already are, she replied, arching into his touch. Time blurred as clothing fell away, as the small couch became their world, as whispered confessions mingled with sighs of pleasure. In the secure room, cut off from the world, they found something neither had expected: freedom and surrender, strength and vulnerability. Hours later, wrapped in emergency blankets, Tasha's head on Cole's chest, the security phone rang. Building clear, came the report. False alarm triggered in electrical. Cole's arms tightened around her. We should go back. Back to pretending? Tasha asked, raising herself on one elbow to look at him. No. He brushed hair from her face with unexpected tenderness. No more pretending. Morning light revealed more than just the aftermath of passion. It exposed the security footage showing exactly who had breached the building. As the image clarified on Cole's phone, Tasha felt his body tense against hers. It can't be, he whispered, showing her the screen. The face staring back belonged to his supposedly dead fiancé. What's more intimate, physical surrender or emotional trust? Share your thoughts on which makes you more vulnerable. The woman Cole had mourned for 5 years wasn't dead at all. She was very much alive and determined to reclaim everything she believed belonged to her, including him. Run it again, Cole demanded, voice hollow as they sat in his office. Security team hovering nervously nearby. The footage played on repeat. A woman in dark clothing, face briefly visible as she looked directly at the camera before disabling it. Even with the grainy quality and baseball cap partially shadowing her features, the resemblance was unmistakable. Madeline Rose. Not dead, not a victim, a ghost made flesh. Facial recognition is 89% positive, the head of security confirmed. Should we contact the police? Cole stared at the frozen image. No, not yet. When the team left, silence engulfed the office. Tasha watched Cole. The rigid set of his shoulders, the controlled breathing, the way his hands formed fists then relaxed in measured rhythm. Talk to me, she said quietly. 5 years, he finally replied. 5 years of believing she died because of me, of keeping her room like a shrine, of blaming myself. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Seattle's skyline disappeared behind sheets of relentless rain as they reviewed the evidence. Photographs, timestamps, offshore accounts. Pieces of a betrayal so complete it had nearly destroyed him once. It might still. The crash site, Tasha prompted gently. Her body, the car went off a cliff into the ocean. They never recovered. His voice faltered. I identified her from personal effects, accepted what they told me, and the investigation ruled an accident. Cole's laugh held no humor. I was too deep in grief to question it. But now we know she faked her death, Tasha said, laying out the facts they'd pieced together. And she's back. What? The Korean deal. Cole turned, eyes hard with realization. It's worth billions. Expansion rights in 3 major ports. If she's working with Zhao and Werner, Tasha added, then this has been planned for months. He returned to his desk, pulling up contract details. She always knew my expansion strategy. Helped develop it years ago. The implications settled between them. Not just corporate espionage, but a conspiracy years in the making. A betrayal so elaborate it took faking death to execute. What does she want from you personally? Tasha asked the question Cole seemed to be avoiding. His expression darkened. Control. It was always about control with Madeline. Without warning, he pulled Tasha to him, his kiss desperate, almost punishing. She responded despite herself, body remembering the night they'd shared, heart aching for his pain. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. I need to know it was real, he whispered. Last night. That it wasn't just. It was real, she assured him, hands framing his face. I'm real. Later that night, in the darkness of his bedroom, a step neither had planned but both needed, Cole traced patterns on her bare skin as if memorizing her. His touches held reverence mingled with fear, as if she too might vanish. You're nothing like her, he murmured, pressing his lips to her shoulder. You keep saying that, Tasha replied, stroking his hair. What do you mean? Madeline calculated every move, every word. Nothing was genuine. His arms tightened around her. You couldn't hide your feelings if you tried. The vulnerability in his voice made her heart ache. This powerful man, brought low by betrayal, now risking himself again. I won't disappear, she promised, knowing even as she said it that some things remained beyond her control. The text message arrived at midnight. She'll never love you like I did. Meet me tomorrow or watch your company fall. Cole stared at his phone, jaw tight. I need to face her alone, he told Tasha. Something cold settled in her stomach as he walked away. The certainty that whatever happened at that meeting would determine if what they'd found together had any chance of survival. Have you ever discovered someone you trusted completely had betrayed you? How did you rebuild afterward? Share your experience below. While Cole confronted his past, Tasha made a discovery that changed everything. The sabotage hadn't started 5 years ago with his fiance's betrayal. It had started 30 years ago with his father's secrets. Cole had left at dawn, his kiss goodbye carrying the weight of someone walking into battle. If I'm not back by tonight, there's a file on my desk. Bottom drawer, combination 8-4-7-2. You're coming back, Tasha insisted, gripping his shirt. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just in case. The Harrington shipping offices felt empty without him. Tasha buried herself in work, checking her phone every 15 minutes, ignoring the curious glances from staff who sensed something had shifted between her and their boss. By noon, with no word from Cole, anxiety gnawed at her resolve. The bottom drawer of his desk beckoned. 8-4-7-2. The lock clicked open. Inside lay a single blue folder labeled Original Incorporation. Beneath it, a small key taped to an address she didn't recognize. The storage facility stood in an industrial district south of downtown, rows of identical metal units stretching beneath fluorescent lights. Unit 847 waited at the end of a long hallway, its padlock untouched for what appeared to be years. The storage facility smelled of dust and forgotten promises as Tasha followed the key code she'd found hidden in Cole's father's old ledger. Each numbered door leading deeper into a past someone had tried to bury. The unit contained only filing cabinets and cardboard boxes. No treasure, no weapons, just paper. But as Tasha began reading, she realized she'd found something far more valuable than gold. Letters between Cole's father and his brother, Cole's uncle, Edward Harrington. Shipping manifests with discrepancies. Offshore account numbers. photos of meetings with men whose faces appeared in news articles about organized crime. And most damning, original partnership agreement showing Edward owned 49% of the company, not the 15% he claimed publicly. Tasha's phone rang, startling her in the silent room. Unknown number. "Hello. He told you where to look." A woman's voice, smooth, confident. I knew he would. Tasha's grip tightened on the phone. "Madeline. Smart girl. Smarter than I expected." The voice carried a smile Tasha couldn't see but could feel, predatory, satisfied. "You found the storage unit. Now you understand." "Understand what?" "That Cole isn't the real target. He never was. It's the company, the ports, the routes. Edward has been planning this takeover for decades. I'm just his latest tool. Why tell me this? Because by now, Cole knows too. And he'll try to be the hero." Madeline's voice hardened. Edward won't let him leave that meeting alive. The call ended, leaving Tasha standing among 3 decades of secrets, her heart hammering against her ribs. She gathered everything she could carry and ran. Back at the office, she called Cole repeatedly. No answer. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow, a meeting where Edward would likely move to oust Cole permanently. She worked through the afternoon, piecing together the evidence. Edward had embezzled millions from the company for years. He'd sabotaged Cole's expansion efforts repeatedly, and he'd recruited Madeline to get close to Cole, to learn his weaknesses. When Cole finally returned, rain-soaked and hollow-eyed, Tasha knew his meeting had gone badly. "She's working with my uncle," he said, voice flat. "They've been planning this for years." Before Tasha could share her own discoveries, his phone rang. The board had called an emergency meeting to vote him out as CEO. "They moved it up," Cole said, hanging up. "Tomorrow morning. We need to go to the police," Tasha urged, showing him what she'd found. Cole leafed through the documents, his expression darkening. "This goes beyond corporate fraud. These shipping routes, they're moving more than legal cargo. Drugs? Weapons? Both." He closed the file, looking at her with newfound fear. "My family built this company on blood money, and now they want it back." She stepped closer, hands framing his face. "This isn't your legacy. You built something legitimate, something worth fighting for." His forehead pressed against hers, a moment of weakness he allowed only with her. "If they win tomorrow, everything I've built falls apart. Then we don't let them win. Would you risk everything to uncover the truth for someone you care about, even if that truth might hurt them? Tell me what you would do." 24 hours to save an empire, expose a decades-long conspiracy, and risk the heart she'd promised herself she'd never give to a man with walls as high as a skyscraper. They transformed Cole's penthouse into a war room. Laptops open, documents spread across every surface, phones constantly ringing as they called in favors from attorneys, journalists, and federal contacts. "Edward will have the votes," Cole said, pacing between windows. "He's been courting the board for months." Then we changed the game. Tasha sorted financial records into piles of evidence. "The board can't vote if they're facing federal investigation for racketeering." Dawn broke over Seattle as they worked through the night. Documents spread across his living room floor, coffee cups abandoned, their shoulders touching as they built their defense piece by piece, 2 outsiders against a world that had never accepted either of them. By sunrise, they had assembled a damning presentation, proof of Edward's embezzlement, Werner's collusion, Madeline's corporate espionage, and the illegal cargo shipped through Harrington ports. Cole paused, staring at the evidence of his family's corruption. "My father knew. All these years, I thought he was a visionary businessman, but he was just a front man for my uncle's operation." "Not entirely," Tasha said gently, handing him a letter she'd found among the papers. "Read it." The letter, dated 2 weeks before his father's death, was addressed to the FBI. He'd been preparing to turn state's evidence against his brother. He'd been trying to clean up the company for his son. Cole's hands trembled slightly. He died in his sleep. "Heart attack," they said. His eyes met Tasha's. "Was it?" "We may never know for sure." She covered his hand with hers. "But we know what he wanted for you, for the company." As morning light filtered through the windows, exhaustion finally caught them. Cole pulled Tasha against him on the couch, his arms wrapping around her as if she might disappear. "When this is over," he murmured against her hair, "whether we win or lose tomorrow." "Today," she corrected softly. "The meeting is in 4 hours." "Today," he amended. "Whatever happens, I need you to know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me." She turned in his arms, searching his face. "This isn't goodbye." "No," he agreed, brushing hair from her face. "It's a promise." Maps and documents crinkled beneath them as he laid her down among their battle plans, his mouth reclaiming hers with urgent need. "If we lose today," he whispered against her throat, "at least I found you first." Her hands pulled him closer, her body arching to meet his. "We're not going to lose," she promised between gasps as his hands mapped her curves with desperate reverence. They came together with the intensity of people who understood exactly what was at stake. Not just a company or reputation, but the chance to rewrite a legacy, to build something honest from the ashes of deception. Later, as they dressed for battle, Cole in his sharpest suit, Tasha in a dress that announced she belonged in the boardroom. He handed her a small thumb drive. "Insurance," he explained. "If something happens to me, this goes to the FBI, the SEC, and the Seattle Times. Everything we found, plus my personal statement." She tucked it in her purse, then straightened his tie. "Nothing's happening to you." "Always the optimist," he said with a ghost of a smile. "Always the realist," she countered. "And realistically, we have truth on our side." The Harrington shipping headquarters seemed to hold its breath as they walked through the lobby. Employees watched them pass, sensing the storm about to break. In the elevator, Cole took her hand. "Ready?" he asked as the doors opened on the executive floor. Tasha squeezed his hand. "Together." As they entered the boardroom side by side, Cole squeezed her hand one last time before letting go. Across the table sat his uncle, his ex-fiancée, and 12 board members whose votes would determine everything. "Before we begin," Cole announced, voice steady, "I think you should see exactly who you've been working with." He pressed play on the recording Tasha had discovered and watched his uncle's face drain of color. Have you ever faced impossible odds with someone by your side? Did it bring you closer or tear you apart? Share your story of facing challenges together. The empire teetered on collapse, betrayal exposed from every direction. But as Cole stood his ground with Tasha beside him, one truth became undeniable. They weren't fighting just for his company anymore, but for a future neither had dared imagine. The recording played through the boardroom speakers. Edward Harrington's voice crystal clear as he discussed drug shipments through company ports with a known cartel leader. That's fabricated," Edward sputtered, half rising from his chair. Cole is clearly desperate to maintain control. "The full recording has been authenticated by forensic audio experts," Cole interrupted, sliding reports across the table, "as have the financial documents showing your systematic embezzlement of company funds." Madeline sat beside Edward, her composure slipping as she realized the trap closing around them. The woman who had pretended to love Cole, who had faked her own death, who had returned to destroy him, now found herself exposed. "Board members," Cole continued, "you've been manipulated into this emergency meeting under false pretenses. My uncle doesn't want leadership change for the company's benefit. He wants it to prevent discovery of his criminal enterprise." James Werner shifted uncomfortably. "These are serious allegations that require investigation." "Already underway," Tasha interjected, opening her laptop to display emails between Werner and Zhao. "Including your collaboration with competitors, Mr. Werner. The FBI is particularly interested in these discussions about port security protocols." Werner's face paled. "You can't prove any of this," Edward hissed, but his confidence was cracking. Cole placed a sealed envelope in front of each board member. "Inside you'll find individual summaries of your legal exposure if you vote to remove me today. You've been unwitting participants in a RICO enterprise. Your only protection is to distance yourself immediately." Sunlight finally broke through Seattle's clouds, streaming through the boardroom windows as justice unfolded in real time. shadows retreating as truth advanced across the polished table between adversaries. Board members flipped through the envelopes with increasing alarm. One by one, they looked to Cole with new understanding. "I move to table the leadership vote," said Eleanor Patel, the first to recover, "and to place Edward Harrington and James Werner on administrative leave pending investigation." "Seconded," another member quickly added. Edward slammed his fist on the table. "This is absurd. You're going to believe this. This nobody he dragged in from a diner." He pointed at Tasha with naked contempt. "She's nothing but a distraction he's sleeping with." The crude attack hung in the air. Cole's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Tasha stepped forward. "Mr. Harrington," she said calmly, "I may have started at a diner, but unlike you, I've never stolen from my employer, never betrayed someone who trusted me, and never had to fake my own death to escape consequences." She placed a final document on the table. "This is a federal warrant for your financial records. It was issued this morning based on evidence we provided yesterday. The agents are waiting downstairs." Edward lunged across the table toward Cole, but security guards, alerted earlier, rushed in to restrain him. "This isn't over," he shouted as they led him away. "You think you've won? This company has always been mine. Your father was nothing but a puppet." Cole remained standing, his expression stoned until the room cleared except for the stunned board members and Tasha. "I apologize for the disruption," he said with remarkable composure. "I suggest we reconvene tomorrow after you've had time to review all materials. My team will cooperate fully with any questions." As the board filed out in shocked silence, Madeline tried to slip away unnoticed. Cole's voice stopped her at the door. "The FBI will want to speak with you too, Madeline." She turned, her beautiful face a mask of calculation. "I was a victim too, Cole. Edward threatened me. That's why I disappeared. Save it for your attorney," Tasha said, unable to contain her disgust. When the boardroom emptied and legal teams took over, Cole pulled Tasha aside, his expression troubled. "I want you to know something before the media storm hits," he said quietly. "I'm not the man they think I am. The heir, the tycoon. That's not why my father left me the company." He placed a folder in her hands. "Read this tonight. Then decide if you still want to be part of my world. What's more satisfying, getting revenge or finding justice? Is there a difference? Share your thoughts in the comments." The file revealed Cole Harrington's final secret. He wasn't born a privilege at all, but adopted from the same kind of poverty Tasha had fought to escape, his entire empire built on a foundation of secrets he'd never shared with anyone until now. Tasha sat alone in her apartment, Cole's file open on her lap, its contents illuminated by a single lamp as evening descended over Seattle. The birth certificate showed a different name, Colin Marshall, born to a 16-year-old mother in Detroit who surrendered him for adoption days after birth. The Harringtons had adopted him when he was 3, after fostering him for a year. Old photographs showed a solemn child with wary eyes, gradually transforming into the confident boy in family portraits. His adoption had been kept quiet, presented to business associates as though he were their biological son. Letters from Cole's adoptive mother revealed more. How they'd chosen him specifically, how they'd recognized something special in his determined eyes, how they'd worried about the secrets they kept from the world. The most revealing document was his father's will, not just leaving Cole the company, but a letter explaining why. "You weren't born to this privilege, son, but you've earned it through your character. You understand the value of honest work because nothing was handed to you at the start. That understanding is what this company needs. Not another entitled heir, but someone who remembers what it means to have nothing." Led with that wisdom, Rain returned to Seattle that night, gentle now, washing the city clean as Tasha read by lamplight, each page revealing the boy from nothing who became the man who had everything, except someone who understood both sides of his divided life. The media had already begun their feeding frenzy. Her phone buzzed constantly with news alerts about Harrington Shipping. Criminal investigation rocks shipping giant. CEO exposes uncle's criminal enterprise. Woman fakes death in corporate espionage scandal. None mentioned Cole's background. That secret, at least, remained safe. She found him standing by the windows in his penthouse, silhouetted against the city lights. He turned as she entered, his expression guarded, waiting for her judgment. "Now you know," he said simply. "Why keep this secret?" she asked, crossing the room slowly. Being adopted isn't something to hide. It wasn't about the adoption. He turned back to the window. It was about maintaining the illusion of dynasty. In this world, bloodline matters. The board, the clients, they believed they were dealing with a true Harrington, the biological son of a shipping legend. And you let them believe it. I became what they expected, what the company needed. His shoulders tensed. I've lived 2 lives since I was 3 years old. The abandoned boy from Detroit, the privileged heir from Seattle. Neither felt completely real. Tasha moved to stand beside him, looking out at the city spread below them. "Which one is the real you?" "I don't know anymore." His voice dropped lower. "Maybe neither." Without words, she crossed the room and turned his face to hers, kissing him with all the understanding of someone who'd walked the same difficult path. "You never had to hide from me," she whispered as clothing fell away, her hands reclaiming every inch of him, not as a billionaire or an orphan, but simply as the man she'd fallen in love with. They made their way to his bedroom, no longer a place of solitude, but of connection. Every touch an affirmation, every kiss a promise of acceptance. "I see you," she whispered against his skin. "Not the CEO, not the orphan, just you." His hands traced patterns of reverence across her body, his eyes never leaving hers as they moved together. 2 people who had fought their way from nothing, who understood the cost of success, who recognized in each other the struggle hidden beneath polished surfaces. "I love you," he said for the first time, the words falling from his lips in a moment of complete vulnerability. "Not for what you do for me or the company, just you." After, as they lay tangled in sheets, her head on his chest listening to his heartbeat, he spoke of the future, not just his, but theirs. The company needed rebuilding. The criminal elements needed excising. The culture needed transformation. "I can't do it alone," he admitted, fingers tracing lazy circles on her bare shoulder. "You don't have to," she promised. As morning approached, Cole traced patterns on her bare shoulder, his voice quiet in the darkness. "I've been thinking about the diner where we met," he said. "What would you say to turning it into something more? Something that could help others like us who started with nothing?" The question hanging between them wasn't just about business. It was about permanence, partnership, future. Have you ever revealed your complete, unfiltered truth to someone? What happened when you finally let someone see all of you? Share your experience. 1 year after a finger snap in a Seattle diner changed both their lives, Tasha stood beside Cole at the grand opening of Harrington Foundation's first community business center. Proof that sometimes standing your ground can lead to building something greater than you ever imagined. The old Rainy Day Diner had transformed. Where faded booths once stood, bright training spaces now welcomed students learning culinary skills, business management, and financial literacy. The kitchen where Tasha had once balanced coffee mugs now hosted chef instructors teaching farm-to-table cooking. From serving coffee to serving communities, Cole whispered in her ear as they prepared to cut the ribbon. Not bad for a year's work. Tasha squeezed his hand, wedding band still new against her fingers. Not bad for a waitress and an orphan pretending to be a billionaire. The crowd gathered outside represented both worlds they'd bridged. Corporate executives in tailored suits alongside neighborhood residents in everyday clothes. Former diner employees now employed as program managers. Students eager to begin classes. Seattle's sunshine broke through the clouds as Tasha cut the ribbon. The converted building behind her now a beacon of opportunity in a neighborhood that had nearly broken her spirit once, before she found the courage to demand respect from a stranger. The Harrington Davis Community Center isn't just about business training, she told the crowd. It's about recognizing that talent exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. We're changing that equation. The path to this moment hadn't been simple. The investigation into Edward Harrington's criminal enterprise had rocked the company. Madeline had struck a deal with prosecutors, trading testimony for leniency. James Werner was serving time for securities fraud. Cole had rebuilt his board with people who valued integrity over connections. He cleaned house at every level, rooting out those who'd enabled the corruption. And he publicly revealed his adoption, turning what Edward had thought was a vulnerability into a strength. The CEO who understood both privilege and struggle. Their personal journey had evolved alongside the professional one. Cole had sold his isolated penthouse, and they'd bought a brownstone in a diverse neighborhood. The shrine to Madeline was long gone, replaced by photographs of their actual life together. Hiking mountains, volunteering at community events, silly selfies taken in private moments. The reception following the ribbon cutting buzzed with energy as donors pledged support for expanding the program to other neighborhoods. Cole worked the room with his natural charisma, but Tasha noticed how often his eyes found her across the crowd, checking in, sharing silent jokes, drawing strength. Later, in the privacy of what was now their home, Cole lifted her onto the kitchen counter, his lips tracing the path from her collarbone to her ear. "Do you remember what you told me that first day?" he asked between kisses. "Respect works both ways," she quoted, smiling against his mouth as her legs wrapped around him. "Best lesson I ever learned," he admitted, carrying her toward their bedroom, their laughter echoing through rooms no longer haunted by the past. In their bedroom, a space they'd created together with no ghosts between them. They celebrated not just the day's success, but the journey that had brought them here. His hands moved over her body with familiar reverence, knowing exactly how to touch her, where to linger, when to quicken. "I still can't believe you stood up to me that day," he murmured against her skin. "Everyone else just took it." "Lucky for you, I have a problem with authority," she gasped as his mouth moved lower. "Lucky for me, you have a problem with disrespect," he corrected, looking up with eyes full of love before returning to his delicious task. They moved together with the confidence of people who had chosen each other fully, without reservations or hidden agendas. Two people who had seen each other at their worst and their best, who had fought side by side against real enemies, who had built something together that would outlast them both. Afterward, as they lay wrapped in each other's arms, Tasha traced the scar on Cole's shoulder, a parting gift from Edward during his arrest, when he'd grabbed a letter opener in desperation. "Any regrets?" she asked softly. Cole captured her hand, kissing her palm. "Only that it took someone snapping their fingers at you for us to meet." Worth it, she decided. Every single moment. From a finger snap to finding love, their journey proves that sometimes standing your ground can lead to everything you never knew you wanted. Has someone's disrespect ever led to an unexpected blessing in your life? Share your story in the comments. If this story touched something in you, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys that remind us how quickly life can change. Tell me in the comments if you've ever had a confrontation that changed your life's direction. Remember, sometimes the moment that tests you becomes the moment that transforms you.